Today we are talking about the bad. That's right, today we are going to be addressing the things that, in my opinion, are holding Wuthering Waves back, and where possible, we're gonna give some ideas on how these could be improved. Let's go. When you reach a certain level of databank, you will realize that most of the echo drops are now yellow, and the ones that aren't are fewer and fewer as you keep playing. This leads to a situation right now where all of your lower level tuners are entirely useless. Due to the innate higher stats of higher rarity echoes, there is absolutely no reason to level lower tier ones, as these will be replaced very quickly in the lifespan of your account. This led to the great majority of the playbase to have hundreds and hundreds of lower tier tuners that are now entirely redundant. All of the blue tier tuners have no use, and the pink ones, although for some can still be useful as we are still quite early in the lifespan of the game, the more people progress, the less relevant these will be, leading to a situation where all of these will just sit in the player's bags rotting away. You can even go and spend some of your currency you earned from defeating bosses on these outdated tuners, which is a complete bait and waste of resources, leading me to believe that Kuro didn't foresaw how quickly these would become completely pointless. The solution here, thankfully, is quite simple. Give the players a way to convert lower tier tuners to higher tier ones at a reduced rate, like spending 20 blues to get 10 pinks, and spending 20 pinks to get 10 yellows, and so on. If this can't be done from a technical standpoint, then being able to sell them for credits would still be a better outcome than what we have right now, where they are entirely without use. The targeting system, or the lock system, however you want to call it, is a standard in games like this where there is a lot of action combat. How then is it possible that such concepts like priority targeting enemies that you are already in combat with is not one of the first things that gets worked on? I'll leave this footage of me just doing general gameplay, killing some enemies and farming some echoes in the background. You will see that every now and then the lock system will just select this completely random enemy in the back that has nothing to do with the fight that I am already engaged with, and then I have to somehow spend 4 or 5 clicks going through all the enemies in that pack before targeting the enemy that I am actually in combat with, just because he happens to be behind me currently. I understand that this is not major or game breaking, but it's very frustrating. Earlier, while I wasn't recording, I was fighting one of the projection bosses, and because he flew out of range of the lock system, it targeted some random enemy below my position that I couldn't even see through all the walls, and because it faced me away from the boss, I ended up dying, and it's frustrating. It's a level of attrition that you have to deal with while playing the game right now that takes away from the enjoyment of what is, in my opinion, the best part of the game, the combat experience, and really has no place in the game. And hopefully it will be fixed sooner rather than later. In terms of solutions, I'm not going to pretend like I know how these systems work or how the coding of them is done. I only hope that Kuro can push a fix for this soon, but right now it's really intrusive in the moment-to-moment gameplay, and that is a shame in my opinion. If you are anything like me, the first thing you do when you unlock a new character is open the character ability windows and read through them to see what they do. And my god, are the ability descriptions in this game probably the worst I've seen in a while. They are extremely long, extremely convoluted, and a lot of the times give you information that you have absolutely no need for. Another reason why these are so confusing is that every little thing has its own name. Instead of calling Forte Energy, well, Forte Energy, every character has a different name for it. Johnshin calls it Chi, Avok Rover calls it Umbra, Angkor calls it Mayhem, and so on and so on. Generic names are good exactly because they are generic. It makes it simple at a glance to know what people are talking about, making the whole thing more approachable. Angkor's Forte circuit is a good example. A great part of the ability description is saying that all of her other abilities generate her forte circuit energy. It doesn't, however, say how much per hit, so having it listed like this is pointless, since the players can play the card for about 2 minutes and figure out that her abilities give her energy. It's information that can be learned and discerned from gameplay, and it has no need to be described in the information when listed in a word format. It makes the whole text much more wordy and harder to wrap your head around than it needs to be. The solution here is simple, however, I would think it's probably very time consuming from a technical standpoint. Someone needs to just have a double look at all the abilities in the game and simplify them. Having the skill details with the damage percentage and such on a different tab is great, and in my opinion, I absolutely love that from a theory crafting standpoint. Just make the text explanations of the abilities easier and simpler to understand. You don't need to tell a short story for every single ability. The story. Now, if you've played the game for a while, you probably knew this one was coming. The story of the game so far isn't great, and I know a lot of that is subjective from person to person, but I think there are quite a few things here that are worth criticizing, worth pointing out, so hopefully we can avoid making the same mistakes in the future. The opening of the game is cliché after cliché, almost paint by numbers generic story. You are someone who wakes up and doesn't know who they are, but have this really incredibly powerful ability that keeps popping its head. Lo and behold, there is a prophecy long foretold that a hero just like yourself would come and save the world from a great evil, and because of that, everybody immediately trusts you and is fighting with one another to have you on their side. It's overplayed and, in my opinion, not that interesting anymore. And because you have no clue about your past or any attachment to the game or the characters in it yet, the whole 4 clues thing from the early acts falls completely short in my opinion. Because why would you care? You don't know these people, you don't know your main character, you have no connection to the world or the people in it. This is something that would make a lot more sense in maybe a few months after you have some sort of connection with whoever you're interacting with. Thankfully, it isn't all doom and gloom. It gets better in the last couple of acts, but that is many hours into the game, and I fear that a lot of the players that were interested in the story have already jumped ship due to the unfortunate start. The final sequence with General Gian is great and is probably the highlight of the story so far for me. In the same vein, the sheep story being like a child's book was very well done, and I absolutely love that part. Also, the introduction of Camellia, Encore and Alto is enjoyable and lighthearted, but it has some interesting bits of story. The problem is getting through those parts. It's almost like shifting to mud to try and find gold here. I don't have a solution, and I don't think there's a need for a solution because clearly they know how to write and have some interesting stories in their game. It's just weird how far the quality of them fluctuates. Hopefully, in the future, we can have some more of the latter parts of the campaign and less of the earlier ones. Obviously, this was a bit of a more negative video, and I don't love making these, but I think it's important to talk about some of the things that aren't as good instead of sweeping them under the rug and pretending like they didn't happen, so we can learn from them, build upon them, and do better in the future because of them. That said, if you want to see some more Wuthering Waves content, check out the video on screen right now. I'll see y'all later. Bye bye.